We are back with Beau Dodson, who is meteorologist for the McCracken County Emergency Management. Always does a lot of consulting and advising when big weather events hit so that McCracken County Emergency Management can be properly prepared for weather events. So we have our first question from Carol in Paducah. She says, our local emergency managers, do they have plans to keep people informed now that Local 6 is not broadcast on the radio anymore? And just to address that real quick on my side of things is that Local 6 is working to try and find a solution to that, just so that you know that, so that we are also concerned about the fact that, of course, we can't be on 87.7 anymore, and that concerns us, and we want to be committed that way, too. So just so the viewers out there know, we are working to find a solution to that. Now, for emergency management, how does that work on your side?
Well, for emergency management, we always have the option to go to the television and radio stations and also NOAA Weather Radio. I encourage everyone to own a battery backup NOAA Weather Radio. You can actually get them from the WPSD TV6 website. You can go on there and look under NOAA Weather Radio. You can get them at local stores as well. And the NOAA Weather Radio gives you the current conditions, forecasts, watches, warnings, river stages, and during an emergency, the local emergency managers have the option to contact the National Weather Service, and they can tell them whatever news it is that they want to convey to the public, and the Weather Service will go on air and they will read that, and then it will repeat itself. No Weather Radio, it is in live unless there's a warning. It's a repeating type system, so you can hear that anytime you just push the button. You can listen to the latest information. And
you get those warnings first. Just like you see them crawl at the bottom of our screen, that's ultimately where we get our warnings from, too, is from the National Weather Service and NOAA. And so that's another way that you can be always alert and updated for significant weather. Now, want to talk to you briefly, real quick. There was an article in the Paducah Sun about rating winter storms. I want to make this very clear that we're not trying to rate winter storms as like a hurricane or a tornado would be rated, but tell us a little bit about that rating system for you.
Correct. Starting this year for emergency management and first responders, those who have to plan for a disaster, we're going to use a new ice storm rating system. It was developed by some meteorologists out in Oklahoma, and it ranks ice storms on a scale of 1 to 5. Unfortunately, it doesn't take into account travel conditions. It's just a damage severity index. So like a Category 1 ice storm would probably mean 4, 5, 6 hour power outages, light damage to power lines and trees. Category 5 would be a catastrophic event, similar to what we had in 2009 earlier this year. That would have been a Category 5. And the scale goes from 1 to 5, so the 2008 ice storm probably would have been a 2 or 3, depending on what county you were in. It was worse in Massac County than McCracken, and not as bad in Graves County. So it will vary, but we're going to try this. I think it would be good for planning purposes, for emergency management, to have some context to just how intense an ice storm is going to be. Because I'm a little concerned that when people hear the word freezing rain or ice storm this year, that immediately everyone's going to think the worst. So if we can put some context to it, I think it will be helpful for everyone.
Everyone very sensitized, and of course, I'm not looking forward to a bad winter, just like everyone else, but it's good to be prepared, and that's what you're doing with this rating system, is preparing your emergency responders and emergency management for what level threat they need to be prepared for.
Correct. I think it would be helpful. We'll give it a try. It's an experimental index. Some Weather Service offices are using it, some are not. We'll see how it goes. As always, unfortunately, winter storms in this area are so difficult to predict. We're always on that rain snow line, and as many people know, there's been days where we thought something was going to happen, and even within hours of the event, something would change. So it's always important to remember that it's a difficult process around here to forecast winter weather. We were fortunate this year that we had 5, 6, 7 days notice of the impending ice storm. That's very unusual to have weather model agreement on that.
And I think we have one last question. Danny at Mayfield says he's always heard that every foggy morning you have in July, you'll see a snow day in the winter. Is that true? Well, a lot of people, you could even bring in the woolly worm to this conversation here.
Yeah, you could. I have heard that. My grandmother used to tell me that, but it was October fogs is what she told me, so I think it varies from what you've heard. There's a lot of these I call them old wives' tales. There's always some merit to them, I think. As you study things, you've learned, there's the old saying, red sky in the morning, sailors take warning, and it has to do with, there's always a little merit to it, but I'm not a big believer in the woolly worms or things like that. It's hard to forecast 2 or 3 months in advance what kind of winter we're going to have. there's a little bit of skill involved in it, but there's also a lot of luck in it. I think the official forecast from the National Weather Service, from NOAA this year, is for above normal temperatures in the Ohio Valley. We'll see how that goes.
That can also be misleading because you can have above normal temperatures for the whole season, but have some very cold snaps in there too. So it's all about really keeping up on changing conditions with the Weather Authority, with the National Weather Service and Emergency Management. And it looks like also, okay, we did have our last question, but to answer your question, we do, we listen to those because a lot of the farmers around here, they're very keen to the weather and what's going on, and they use those old wives' tale, and a lot of times they turn out to be somewhat true. So it's all about being in tune with the weather and the changing weather when it comes to big events like that. Now tomorrow we're going to talk to Gretchen Barnett from the Red Cross. She's also going to be here talking about preparedness. It's Preparedness Week here at Local 6. That's what we're trying to convey, that instead of just waiting for things to happen, do more than just cross your fingers. That's what the Red Cross is saying right now. So we're going to talk to them tomorrow. And also, Weather Authority's John Champion and Kyle Mounts will be here in the week, as well as later in the week, Trent will be here answering questions about earthquakes and other natural disasters. So keep the questions coming. We have them coming in on Facebook from our friends, doing a great job of keeping us updated and asking those questions. And thank you very much, Beau, for coming in. You did a great job.
Much.
Thank you. We'll have more coming up. We'll be back.